Hey there, Twins fans. My name is Seth Stos of Twins Daily. Tonight I'm joined by Matthew Taylor, also of Twins Daily, and we're going to talk about a couple of games today, this afternoon, and the second game still going on in St. Louis. Game one was pretty good. We're going to talk about that first as the second game continues. But game one, the Twins won by a score of 7-3. Let's start quick though, Matthew, by two things. One, you got anything in front of you to drink? And then secondly, what's your most recent article and what have you been writing about?
Yeah, so my drink tonight, enjoying the earlier Twins games tonight and the earlier end to the games with a beer. So I have a Troll Way by Insight Brewing, a Minnesota local craft beer, and it's a citrus Indian pale ale. So enjoying that tonight with an 8 o'clock end time, which is pretty nice. And over at Twins Daily, been writing a lot about Brent Rooker. So it was great to see him. Just his whole debut has done really well since he came up, and then today we got a home run, so we'll talk about him more. But big Brent Rooker fan over here. You're on mute.
Everyone listening, bear with me. I'm trying to do this for the first time. John Bonus normally has been the host in our new format here, so I'm kind of trying to learn everything. So if you're joining us from Twitter, on Facebook, or on YouTube Live, please know that you can leave us comments in this view, in any of those views, and we will see them. We will try to answer as many questions as we get tonight. Again, we'll also be joined by, hopefully, David Youngs here shortly. He's writing the game recaps at Twins Daily, so you'll be able to check those out shortly after the conclusion of Game 2. And, of course, as per tradition, and because it's really all I drink, little Diet Dr. Pepper for the evening. So yes, let's start talking about game one. And you mentioned Brent Rooker. Obviously, that's more of a game two topic. But let's jump to my share screen here. And as I pull that forward here, we are going to go to let's see. Here we go. The Twins Cardinals game one, and I'm going to share that here. So game one, the Twins won by a score of 7-3, as we mentioned already. The Twins actually got a nice start. First of all, from Jose Barrios. He went 5 innings. He was charged with 3 runs on 4 hits and 2 walks, struck out 8. But all of that damage really came in the 6th inning, and kind of a little bit weird. Let's start with that. Your take on Barrios today. I think you saw 2 pitches, the first 5 innings, and then what happened in the 6th.
Yeah, it was a massive start, and just as we're getting down towards the end of the season, it's crazy that we only have, 2.5 weeks left of the season, 3 weeks left of the season is when you really need to see Barrios show that he can give you innings in the first round of the playoffs. You need 3 starters. I think you've got Maeda already locked in, so the other 2 spots are sort of up for grabs between Rich Hill, Barrios. You got Odorizzi coming back soon. You have Randy Dobnik, who pitched later tonight. So those playoff spots are really up for grabs. And I think Barrios has shown over the last 4 starts of his, and especially tonight, I think was his best start of the season, even if his numbers, like you said, with the earned runs maybe weren't there, but the stuff was just incredible. His fastball was the best I've seen all season. Hitters just couldn't hit it. They were whiffing at it all over the place. And he just looked really good. He was in command of his stuff. He had every pitch working, and he just looked like a guy that you feel confident throwing out into the playoffs. So I thought tonight was a massive start for Barrios. He's only got a few more turns in the rotation before the playoffs start, and tonight was what you wanted to see.
Right. So as we look at now FanGraphs game recap, especially the win probability or expectancy as the game went along, the big hit early, obviously, Josh Donaldson with a 3-run home run there in the 3rd inning that gave the team a lead, and they were able to kind of maintain that, and it stayed there for a while. Nelson Cruz added his home run in the 5th inning, made it a 4-0 lead. They actually got that lead 5-0. And then again, the Cardinals did come back. Miguel Sano kind of put it over the top with a 2-run homer. But I think one thing I think we need to say is if you're going to get a game and I think this is how the team had it mapped out before things got going this year. Get a strong start from Barrios, get some power from Josh Donaldson, Nelson Cruz, and Miguel Sano. That's a pretty good way to win some ball games.
Yeah, for sure. And it all came against right-handed pitching, which is even more exciting, I think. You know that those guys are going to hit lefties. So the fact that you saw them hit and mash righties today was really promising. And a lot of the hits today and in the first game came with runners on base, which is good. I think throughout this season, we've seen a lot of solo home runs. So to see Donaldson hit a home run with two guys on, you saw Sano get a home run with I think Polanco was on right before him. Just nice to get hits with guys on base. I think Donaldson's came with 2 strikes. I don't remember if Sano's did, but just nice timely hitting today. And that's kind of what you've been looking for. I've done way too many of these post-game pints where it's the offense started out strong and then they, petered out throughout the end of the game. But you saw Sano, and his exclamation point in the 7th inning was huge, and that's not what we were getting throughout the season. We were getting the offense starting out strong and then just dying out, and Sano made sure that there was no doubt in the game. There was no question, and he put the game to rest, which was huge.
So if you have comments, please feel free to leave them in here in this view. Send us questions. We'd love to talk about those. And again, our focus is going to be primarily on game 1 until game 2 finishes. But I think we'd be remiss to not mention that Jorge Alcala just had to leave the ball game. I believe he got hit by a line drive as I was trying to watch and look at different screens at different times. So obviously we hope he's all right. Sean Poppin, who is the 29th man now pitching for the Twins. They're currently down, I believe, 5-3 in the bottom of the 6th. So hopefully the Twins can get out of this with that and give themselves a chance here in the 7th inning to try to have a comeback. So as we look at win probability added in the first game, Jose Barrios, obviously, with his performance, 0.110, Matt Whistler, 0.058. Whistler, again, came in and, did a good job after kind of calming things down. I think we can agree. One of the statements from game 1, again, Williams Astudillo behind the plate, kind of a liability. There was a wild pitch that should have been maybe made. There was an easy pass ball that allowed a runner to move up, and but again, let's focus more on Whistler, and again, different roles, and he's getting more high leverage situations. As maybe Trevor May is losing some of that leverage situation, Matt Whistler, Caleb Thielbar, these guys are getting that opportunity. Just generally, are you in favor of that? Are you good with changing that as the season progresses? Or 162 game season, maybe you don't react so quickly with just 15 games left after tonight. You just kind of have to make decisions, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think we're in the time now. I think the first part of the season, and I think Rocco played it really well. The key was really keeping your guys healthy, not getting too high, not getting too low, and just playing the long game. You're going to make the postseason with expanded playoffs, and that was the way that Rocco played it, which I think was really smart. But we're getting now to the part of the season that we're really close to October. We're really close to the playoffs beginning, and we need to start to find out who the dudes are going to be that you're going to throw out there in a playoff series in the 6th inning in a game that's tied 3-3. Can you trust Jorge Alcala? Can you trust Caleb Thielbar? Can you trust Matt Whistler? So I really like the move of throwing them out there in close game. Matt Whistler got a save opportunity the other day. You need to see what these guys have and see if you can trust them in October. And so far, a lot of these guys are really showing that they can do it. I think Whistler's a prime example. We've seen him in every single opportunity this year. We've seen him open games. We've seen him close games. We've seen him in, tie games in a close game. We saw him today pitch in a pretty decently leveraged situation coming in to clean up a little bit of a mess that Jose Barrios started. So I think he's 100% earned the trust of Rocco Baldelli and of Twins fans to come in playoff games. And so I really like just getting him these opportunities now so you can see what you've got in your players so you can know who you can trust in October.
For sure. So as we go here, I want to talk a little bit more about the offense in game 1. And one topic is Luis Arraez. And the Twins have been pretty pretty careful with how they've used him since he's come back here this week. But again, 2 hits again, an RBI. Did you find it interesting that he was removed from the game in about the 5th inning today after his 3rd plate appearance for Marwin Gonzalez, who came in at second base, and now Arise is not playing in game 2? What do you think of the usage there, or are we worried a little bit too much?
I think we're worried a little bit too much. I mean, I think in general you have to be worried about Arise, just knowing his status throughout the season. It's clear that he's not 100%. You can definitely see that in his usage and the way that he runs. Just every time he has to run past first base, he's lumbering down to second base and further. But I think it was a good move, and we saw this happen a couple games ago as well. And that was with Brent Rooker and Jake Cave. And I think it's a smart move by Rocco, where once a guy gets on base, then you flip him out for a guy on the bench where, one, you're upgrading defensively. I would rather have Marwin playing second base than Luis Arise. And also that spot in the lineup isn't going to come up for 9 batters, right? He just came up, he got on base. So you don't really need him to get in. Why are you going to make him run when, I mean, maybe he's a little bit faster than Marwin, but he's not exactly a speed demon on the diamond. You're getting a defensive improvement, plus you're just saving his knees. So I think it was a smart move, and I really like that development. I think that's really smart by Rocco. So I'm not too concerned by it, just given what we know about Arise. And I think he's going to be this is going to be the Arise story for the rest of the season. We're going to see him in and we're going to see him out, and it's not going to get better, but we just got to deal with it the way that we can. And I think how Rocco did it today was smart.
Yeah, I agree. My initial thought was, man, it's early. I hope he's okay. My second thought is, sure, he may be a little bit faster than Gonzalez in a normal situation. But again, you're protecting his legs. And it's kind of like when they ran for Donaldson the other night in that big game where they needed his run. And actually the pinch runner, I think Adrianza scored on a single to left field. And I would have been nervous the whole time Donaldson was running around third base trying to call out. Kind of the same thing with Arise here. It's let's get him his at bats as much as we can, and then let's take care of him. Nelson Cruz missed 2 games in a row. He returned to the lineup. He did have the home run. I don't know. He crushed that ball. Don't get me wrong. He's the kind of guy that could miss a few days, and it seems like he'd be able to step right in. Now that doesn't necessarily mean results, but they're a better team when Nelson Cruz is playing. Here's a question I got earlier today. Is Nelson Cruz a AL MVP candidate? Right now he's 1 homer shy of Mike Trout. Mike Trout's team is nowhere near playoff contention, which will matter to some voters, even if he is the best player. Cruz's team is fighting for a spot in the playoffs, and a team that hasn't had a lot of offense. Who are the other candidates, and do you think he has a legitimate shot at the MVP?
I mean, biasly speaking, I think he should, just because I know exactly how valuable he is to the Twins. And if we didn't have him, I don't know if we would be in a playoff spot. We've seen just how quiet this offense has gone, and we've seen Nelson Cruz pretty much carry this offense this way through the season. I just personally don't think that the committee would ever vote for a designated hitter for MVP, whether it's fair or not. I tend to think it probably is fair. I think half of the game of baseball is defense, so I am generally not a huge fan of voting for a DH for MVP. I just pulled up the Fangraphs WAR leaderboard, and for the American League, let me quick get there and let you know who is leading in wins above replacement. So number 1 is Anthony Rendon. Number 2 is Mike Trout, both of the Angels, who are struggling, as you said. Number 3 in the American League is Tim Anderson, and number 4 is Nelson Cruz. So the numbers say that he should be right in that conversation, and I agree. I just don't necessarily think that the committee would ever vote for a designated hitter who only plays half the game of baseball to win. But I guess we'll see. It's closer than we might think that it would be.
And another topic is the Twins and Cardinals go to the top of the 7th. Twins now down by a score of 6-3. They do have their 2, 3, 4 hitters coming up in Donaldson, Cruz, and I don't know, Rosario maybe, or Snow, and maybe they get to Rooker again here. We'll see. Hopefully they need 3 runs just to tie. But I was going to ask you about Sano. And, again, I think we can all agree he's going to strike out a ton. He's going to be streaky. He had his fourth home run in 8 games. He's had multi-hit games in something like 4 of his last 8 and 0 hits in the others with a bunch of strikeouts. Ultimately, the numbers look great, even if it's frustrating. So where does Sano fit in your pecking order? I mean, do you just put him into that number 4, number 5 spot in the lineup and just deal with it every day?
Yeah, I think you need to. I think the lineup construction gets a little bit complicated when now the Twins' 3 best hitters are all righties. I think Rocco really likes to have Donaldson in the number 2 spot, which I think makes sense. Then you either put Cruz in the number 3 spot if you're okay going righty-righty, or you put him 4th if you want to alternate righties-lefties. So I don't think Sano's ever going to hit any earlier than 4th. I don't know. You want to go righty or for number. Oh my gosh. We can't quite talk about this game yet, but things are getting interesting.
I'm not sure the rules on if we can really talk about that or not.
Flip on FSN.
Have 4.
Yeah. So anyways, the game is 4-6 right now. So getting interesting. But no, I don't think you're going to go 2, 3, 4 for righty. So I don't think Sano's going to hit any sooner than 5th, but he's incredible. You're going to live with the strikeouts. You got to live with the ugly swings. The numbers are going to swing out over the long haul. He's going to get his OPS over 900, and he's just an amazing baseball player. And the first base defense has been really encouraging as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, hopefully we have a few more minutes before we really dig into game 2 of the doubleheader tonight. And again, just want to remind anyone that's watching right now, please feel free to ask questions. And maybe for the next couple of minutes, we take questions on, just general Twins topics, if you've got any. And let's see. Let's go with this one. I think from Go Twins 10, I think with how well Pineda is pitching and Dobnik's inconsistent command lately, that Pineda is our, and then I'll continue, 3rd starter for the first playoff series. This is something that John and Nick and I talked about last night. Matthew, what is your thoughts on if today was the day and you could line up your 1, 2, 3 starters for a potential 3-game first round series, who are you going with?
I think Maeda is locked in at number 1 for me. I don't know where Rocco's going to go. He might go with Barrios just because he has the experience in a Twins uniform. Who knows? I think Maeda absolutely is deserving of being the number 1 guy. He's extremely trustworthy. He has the experience. There's nothing more you can say about Maeda. He's incredible. Comes down to Barrios and Maeda. How much does it matter if you're going game 2 or game 3? I'm not sure there's a huge difference there. I would probably lean towards going Barrios in game 2. I think stuff plays in the playoffs. You want your guy with good stuff who's going to strike out guys and who could potentially dominate a game, which I think Barrios has a better shot at doing that. But Pineda has absolutely put himself in the conversation as a playoff starter. If he's number 2 or number 3, I don't really care. Maybe Pineda has the higher floor than Barrios does. We haven't really seen Pineda give up more than 3 runs in 5 innings in a start in the last calendar year since before July. So I'm totally fine having Pineda in there as the number 2 or the number 3 playoff starter. And he's as consistent of a starter as you can ask for. He's going to give you 5 innings. He's going to let in 3 runs, and he's going to give yourself a ball game. You're not going to lose a game with Pineda.
Yeah, and one other talker that we had last night, and Nick and I kind of went back and forth on this, is the role of Eddie Rosario, short term and long term. I think the answers to those can be different. He made the comment about you take the good, you take the bad. In game 1, he had 2 more hits, and in game 2, I'm not exactly sure if he's got any hits, but he's swung a lot of first pitches. So, where do you stand on what you do with Eddie Rosario for the 2020 season, and then what's your hope for him in the offseason?
I think 2020, you got to keep rolling with him. I don't know that. I mean, you have Brent Rooker up, but I don't know necessarily that you want to have him start over Eddie Rosario in a game in the 2020 season. We have, like I said, a very limited amount of games left in the 2020 season. So I don't think you're going to pull out Eddie right now. I think you keep him in there and you roll with it. Like I said, Brent Rooker, his defense isn't really going to necessarily play as your starting left fielder in the playoffs either. So I think you roll with Eddie for the 2020 season. Like you said, you take the good with the bad. But I think absolutely beyond 2020, I don't see really a spot for Eddie on this team. You have Brent Rooker now, who has shown that he can play in the big leagues. He's hitting for exit velocity. He's showing good underlying numbers. And then you got Trevor Larnach and Alex Kirilloff in the minors who can more than produce what Eddie's been producing, I think, both at the plate and in the field. I think there's just Eddie is a great baseball player. He'll find a spot on another roster. I think he just picked the wrong. He's not on the right roster right now. There's plenty of corner outfield depth, and I don't think that there's need to have Eddie on a decent sized third arbitration contract past 2020. What do you think, Steph?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree that you continue with him for this year. You live with it. It's not always going to be pretty, and he certainly does have the ability to make big plays. With Kepler being out right now, obviously that also factors in. It'll be very interesting if and when Kepler comes back, what happens with Jake Cave, Lamont Wade, Brent Rooker. They've got Rooker has shown up and put together really good at bats. And when it comes to putting together really good at bats, very few do it as well as Lamont Wade. And Jake Cave just plays harder than anybody in the world, I think, and does a nice job defensively. He's a nice hitter, never great at anything, but he's a solid fourth starter. So, first of all, the game has gone final. We are complete, and the Twins lost Game 2 by a score of 6-4. As we alluded to earlier, but didn't quite say, Nelson Cruz did hit a home run in the I guess it'd be the top of the 7th inning, which is, again, still hard to get used to saying, but that cut the deficit to 2, but they were unable to add another run. I see Miguel Sano hit an absolute rocket at the third baseman to end the game. So the Twins fall in Game 2. My name is Seth Stoes of Twins Daily. We certainly are happy that you have joined us here tonight. I'm joined by Matthew Taylor, who does a fantastic job writing at Twins Daily a couple times a week. We're going to probably be joined here in just a few minutes by David Youngs, who has been on a few of these as well. He's actually writing the game recap right now and hopes to join us. Be sure to check out twinsdaily.com in a matter of minutes to find that recap. So with that, let's talk some Game 2. And again, we welcome your questions, whether you're joining us on Facebook Live, on the Twins Daily Facebook page, Twitter, and Periscope. Ask your questions. We'll try to answer as many of those as we can. Hopefully we get a ton of them. Or on YouTube Live. We appreciate that as well. So we're already getting some questions and comments, and we'll talk about tonight's games, this afternoon's game. Real quickly, let's go through Game 2 here, and I'll pull that up on the page. As you can see, the Twins did lose by a score of 6-4. We'll bring so you can look at Matthew as well. Kind of tough to see, but I'm going to go first to the fan graphs. Obviously, things were what they were. I think the big story early was Brent Rooker's first major league home run, which came with Miguel Sano on base to give the team a 2-0 lead. It kind of stayed that way for a while. Randy Dobnik looked good through 2. And then came the bottom of the 3rd inning, which I believe is something that Matthew and I are going to spend a little bit of time talking about here. The struggles of Dobnik to throw strikes inexplicably, and maybe the timing of when he came out of the game, I think, is certainly a talker. I think Matthew and I may disagree a little bit on the severity of the decision and timing, but I think we can all agree once that happened, the Twins really just weren't able to mount much of a comeback and ultimately fell 6-3. Let's look at some of the key contributors in the game. Again, Randy Dobnik threw 2 innings and gave up, I believe he was charged with a bunch of runs, 2 2/3 innings, 5 earned runs, 2 walks and 2 hit batters. That was really what did him in. Caleb Thielbar came in and did a nice job after a walk, which brought in another run. 19 pitch at bat with Matt Wieters, which you may or may want to talk a little bit about. And then Sean Poppin, Jorge Alcala, Tyler Clippard, Trevor May, all these guys pitched. And frankly, none of them really did that great tonight. But offensively, again, Rooker was the main story there. He was second on the team in win probability added at .114, again, thanks to that early 2-run homer. And Nelson Cruz actually had a couple of hits and in the game. It was 3 for 3 with that home run and a walk. So he had a .125 as well. Looking quickly at StatCast, you can see Nelson Cruz just flat out crushing the ball. So let's talk a little bit. I want to start with this because I know we're going to talk on some other things. The first thing, I just want to kind of talk about the lineup in game 2. Now, Jorge Polanco got yesterday off. The idea being he just needed some time off. He was sore, all of this stuff, and he had been on fire. But after playing the first game today, he was out game 2. And I got to be honest, that was probably the decision that surprised me the most. So any concern that there might be something more, or, is it just soreness? And we don't know that answer for sure. But with 2 days off, the next 2 days off for the Twins, it's going to be needed.
Yeah, it was certainly surprising. I am concerned. I've maintained that I think Polanco is the most irreplaceable player on the Twins, just with the depth behind him in the shortstop position. There's not a ton. It's Adrianza, and that's about it. You could play Marwin Gonzalez at shortstop. I don't know that that's the greatest idea. So I don't know. I guess there's not really any way to know how much is Polanco hurting versus how much do they just want to ensure that he is 100% and ready to go in the playoffs. If you want to be cautious with any player right now, Polanco is probably the guy just because of the lack of depth at the shortstop position. So if that's the deal, then I'm totally fine with that. And if he is hurting, then there's certainly some more concern to have there.
All right. So again, everyone, I hope you got a lot of that. I apologize. My internet is a little unstable right now, so bear with me. I think wanted to just mention too, again, Arise didn't play. Jeffers played game 2. Josh Donaldson played both games. I think that is important to note. But again, Byron Buxton didn't. I don't know that means anything. I really don't. I don't think it does. I don't think it's anything to worry about. He played just fine. I mean, he didn't look like he hurt anything. So, I think it's just continuing the process. Any concerns about Buxton being out or, really just kind of a second game lineup that was just a little bit different than the first game?
No concern at all. You're in a doubleheader, so you got to be extra cautious about playing your guys 2 games in a row. You're coming up on 2 days rest, so I think it's nice to be able to just make sure you get through it healthy, and then you got 2 days off. There's no sense to overdo it in this last leg right before the 2 games off or the 2 days off and get somebody injured. You'd rather get through this, get your 2 days off, and then you're into the final stretch of the season. So it seems like that happened. Hopefully everything's okay with Alcala. So no issues at all, no worries at all with Buxton. Baldelli said that eventually he's going to get Buxton and Donaldson playing on back-to-back days. It's going to be a little bit staggered, but we'll get there by the end of the season.
All right. Again, I welcome any questions or comments that you may have. Feel free to leave them on Twitter, Periscope, Facebook Live, wherever you're watching this as well. Let's go to the big topic, I think, and that's the Randy Dobnik. Was fantastic through the first 2 innings. Looked really good, really sharp. I think he had like 20 pitches through 2 innings. Got strikeouts and got ground balls. Then came the third inning. He had 2 walks and 2 hit batters. And we've got a question here. That was not the right question. We're going to go with this one that says from D.A. Vikes or Da Vikes. How does Dobnik go from MVP to can't buy a strike? And I will answer that one, and then I will lead into asking Matthew to share his thoughts on that question and also on a questionable managerial decision, maybe. I will say this. Randy Dobnik has been fantastic. Even today, I think that what hurt him was that he just had so much movement, and he could not find a release point that inning that put the ball over the plate. And then it just seemed to just get worse. And he was throwing a few strikes that he didn't get calls on just because he was so all over the place. And as much as we want to blame umps for doing that, they're human, and they're not going to call borderline pitches when you're all over the place. So I think, secondly, I think they were right in questioning if the second batter was actually hit by a pitch, because I don't think he was. But that was allowed to go through. So the question comes, he actually walked in a run or hit in a run. gave up 1 run. The team's still up 2-1. Nobody out. Paul Goldschmidt coming up. And this is where Matthew Taylor starts having his issues with Rocco Baldelli. So Matthew, take it from here. And what were your thoughts on the situation? Because I'm going to slightly disagree, but not completely.
Yeah, so I certainly welcome in the comments or from Seth or whoever disagreements. I came into today's game and I tweeted out before the game, so it's not a hindsight 2020 thing, but I came into today's game thinking we have 2 off days coming. We have pretty much the entire bullpen at the disposal. From yesterday, we only used 2 of our relievers. We used Rogers and I forget who was the other person who we pitched yesterday, but pretty much the entire bullpen at the disposal with 2 off days. So anybody is on the table. You don't need to get Dobnik through 4 or 5 innings. You can get him through once time through the order and then use the top of your relievers, top of your bullpen from there. You got Trevor May, you got Tyler Duffy, you got Taylor Rogers, you got Tyler Clippard, you got Jorge Alcala, all of these relievers who have been unbelievable from the beginning of the season. There's no need to throw Randy Dobnik more than 1 time through the Cardinals order, especially, and I don't think that this part can be forgotten, that he's pitching on 3 days rest. The first time in his major league career that he's pitched on short rest. So just another reason that there's no need to pitch Randy Dobnik more than 1 time through the order. So going into the 3rd inning, Dobnik was pitching to the 7th, 8th, and 9th hitters. He allowed a single to the number 7 hitter. He hit the number 8 hitter, allegedly, and then he walked the number 9 hitter. So he was struggling, and Rocco kept in Dobnik, who then continued to struggle. And Dobnik continued to pitch to 6 batters through into the second part of the order, and the game got out of hand quickly. And I think Rocco should have gone into the game with a game plan of let's let Randy go through the order once. Let's have Tyler Clippard, Trevor May, Tyler Duffy, whoever ready to go so that they can come back in, or they can come in when the batters are going through the second time of the order, and then we can finish out the game. It's a 7-inning game that way. And so I just think Rocco left Dobnik in way too long. I think there was no reason not to deploy your full bullpen with 2 days off coming. And I just think that he messed up there. I respect Rocco. I think he's a great manager. I'll be the first to commend him, but I think he can also be held accountable for questionable decisions. And I think that was a questionable decision to leave in Dobnik that long. Off my soapbox.
I was going to say, come on down. Again, I appreciate that. I think the part that I'm hearing and I didn't think of was what you're essentially saying is use him as an opener tonight. In which case, might as well throw Whistler then, or throw Poppin if you're going to just throw an opener. And I mean, otherwise, there's no reason to go with him. My point is this: I think that clearly he was struggling, and clearly he was doing things in that inning that he just hasn't done more than one other time this season, and that was just completely lose control. And here's the difference between, I think, the process of thinking versus the results, because I think we can all agree the results were absolutely not what any Twins fan would want. My thought was, if you were going to take him out, and I don't know if they were ready to or not, and I don't know if they even, I mean, again, you're not thinking your starter who absolutely dominated the first 2 innings is suddenly going to lose control and command. They may not have even had anyone ready to go in that 3rd inning until too late. My comment would be is once Goldschmidt came up, I would have probably made a move before Goldschmidt. But once they didn't make the move with Goldschmidt, Dobnik got Goldschmidt to look silly on a strikeout. Now you've got 1 out and the bases loaded, and suddenly he's found it. He's got it back. And you want a double play to get out of that inning. And Randy Dobnik, if he's got it, is that guy. And frankly, that's what he got. He got the ground ball to first that Sano made a great play on and threw home. And it probably would have been close either way, but Jeffrey's foot was off home plate. So that's 1. That would have been a nice out to get to, even if it was just the 1 out. He ball back to himself. That was also a great pitch. Got the sink, got exactly what he wanted, got the force out. And really the hit that drove in a couple of runs was not very well hit. So I feel like he did exactly what you would want Randy Dobnik to do in that situation. The results didn't work out. They ended up giving up 5 runs in that inning. I'm certainly not going to argue that it's not a decision that can be and should be questioned and conversated about. And we again welcome, like Matthew said, your comments on that situation in the comments. I don't think that you go into a Randy Dobnik start thinking one time through the order. He only threw 61 pitches. The only thing really there is that he may have had to, miss a certain day or that kind of thing in his pregame, routine between starts. That's absolutely fair. I don't think it's, you had said we all have respect for Rocco, and I don't think it's like a fireable offense. It is certainly that is capable of being questioned. And I want to bring in, we're going to add to this stream, we're going to add in David Youngs, who again had the honor of writing up the game recaps for both games tonight, and he's joining us now. Again, you can check those out right now at twinsdaily.com. So welcome, David. Your thoughts on what you wrote and what were the key moments, and we're going to talk about game 2 first with you. So your thoughts on game 2.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, first of all, Seth. I should mention first and foremost, my postgame pint is a Wild State cider based out of beautiful Duluth, Minnesota. But yeah, starting with game 2, and I caught a little bit of Matthew and Seth talking about it. But it was frustrating, but at the same time, I liked what Seth said about, if you're going to take Dobnik out, maybe take him out before Goldschmidt comes up. And he struck Goldschmidt out on some pitches that he doesn't normally swing at, which was great. And following that, there wasn't any hard hit balls that scored the runs. But at the same time, it's frustrating. You wish that Jeffers would have his foot on the plate there. But nonetheless, Randy Dobnik is still, I think, he pitched an excellent first 2 innings. He's not somebody that I don't think you take out of the rotation at this point, given how well he's pitched throughout the year. I know that his last couple of starts have fluctuated a little bit, but I still have faith in him. To me, it was also just the number of walks tonight. I think I wrote a little bit about in the recap, 8 total walks, including the 2 hit batters that Dobnik hit in the 3rd inning. Those are the first 2 that he's hit all year. As they say, walks will haunt, and they did. And that wasn't just Dobnik tonight. The Twins used 5 relievers tonight, and I believe Sean Poppin was the only one not to walk a batter, and he obviously was only in because of the Alcala injury. So overall, not an ideal game by any means against a very, in my opinion, mediocre Cardinals team. But at the same time, while there could have been, Rocco could have taken Dobnik out earlier, I don't think not taking him out was the worst decision in the world, but obviously the results weren't there.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anyone will argue that wasn't the best results. Joe Erkenbrack has a few comments here that we're going to share, and then they did get Clippard. Clippard certainly wasn't on either. And we'd say another one here from Joe, and Duffy got warmed up and never came in, which is unusual. Normally, if they get warmed up, they're going to come in. So again, we appreciate those comments, and I think as far as the winner of our debate, Matthew, if the one voter is Joe, he goes with Matt. So again, in these post-game pints, I'm completely losing everything. So keep those comments coming in. I did want to scroll up quick. We had a question earlier from J.S. Benson or J. Svensson 17. And again, that comes through Twitter and Periscope. Does Trevor May have a future here after this year? And that question, I think, is necessitated by, first of all, his ERA, even after today, where he wasn't exactly great, dropped to 5.40. He's been giving up some home runs. But as you can see, he's throwing 98 and 99 pretty consistently. He's got a good changeup, and he's got a good curveball. Where are we standing right now on Trevor May? And again, I'm going to start with David on this one because I started with obviously it was just Matthew and I earlier. But David, your thoughts on Trevor May first this year, the rest of this year, and is he a guy that you want to bring back in 21.
Yeah. Well, to me, I think the answer to that is yes. The reason I say that is because besides Jorge Alcala, he's kind of their flamethrower, if there is one on the bullpen staff. Obviously, he's got more experience at Alcala too, so I don't even know. Maybe that could be kind of a mentor role for him to Jorge. But I understand the frustration. He was not great tonight. Still, he's not as rock solid, consistent as I think we expect him to be. But at the same time, I think when he's good, he is on. And I think just given his fastball and that the Twins, in their starting rotation, they don't have anybody who can just throw absolute gas, although we have seen Barrios touch good numbers this year. We've seen, I can't remember if it was Dobnik or Maeda, or maybe it was one of those two, hit a number that they had. Oh, it was Pineda that hit 94. And he hadn't hit that since God knows when. But I think just given that value that he has, it's important to have a pitcher like him on the relief staff.
I think you're muted, but I'm guessing you called on me to respond. So Trevor May.
Sure did.
Trevor May, he is an interesting case. It's weird because he is throwing harder than he ever has before. He's striking out more batters than he has ever before. He's showing better control than he ever has before. He's walking less batters, but batters are just teeing off against him. He's allowing harder contact than he ever has before. He's allowing home runs, which was a struggle of his down the stretch last season. And he's just not consistent. He's allowed runs in about a third of his outings this year. And it's just bizarre because he has really, like David said, he has really good stuff. He has a ridiculous fastball. He's got a breaking ball that fools pitchers or fools batters. But I just don't see how you can have him in a high leverage spot right now. I think Jorge Alcala has passed him in the pecking order of relievers. I think you've got your guys that you trust. I think at this point you have to trust Tyler Duffy. You trust Taylor Rogers. You trust Tyler Clippard. You trust Sergio Romo. And I'm almost at the point that I trust Jorge Alcala right now, but I can't say that about Trevor May. I'm fine trotting him out there in lower leverage situations right now, and I'm fine potentially giving him the ability to work his way back up there. But right now, just those long balls when you're a relief pitcher and you give up home runs, it's just an absolute backbreaker. And so I think he's still in the plans for this year. I think he comes down the pecking order, and I really don't see a path for him coming back next season. I think there's going to be a team that's going to pay him, and I don't think it's going to be the Twins. I think with the depth that the Twins have in the bullpen, with relievers that they have, or with pitching prospects that they have in the minors, not all of them are going to turn into starters. I think someone between Duran, Edouard Kalina, Dakota Chalmers, one of those guys is going to become a relief pitcher as well. So I just don't see there being a path to the Twins paying Trevor May past this season.
And I'll keep it brief just because we've already talked about this more than probably we should. But I agree. He should come down the pecking order a little bit. You know, you mentioned all the names of the guys that could. Now, a month ago, I would have said absolutely pay him 3 years, $15 million, something like that. I don't think I say that anymore. If he wants to do 2 years and $8 million, I'm 100% okay with it. The stuff is too good. He's going to go somewhere and be really good, and I want that to be here because I think with 3+ pitches, he could be great. But yeah, I think he's got to come down the pecking order right now, and that's not to say give up on him. Keep putting him out there, and he could turn that around in the next week. Get some big games coming up with Cleveland and Chicago in the next week or 10 days, and he may find himself in some pretty key roles. So again, thank you for that question. Let's continue down here and see if we've got some other question. Stephen Pincus, I believe that's from YouTube, asks, need to decide where Dobnik pitches in the postseason, and so let's see what he can do leave him in. That's a fair point too. You know, he might be a bullpen guy or a long relief guy, and have to get out of some of those types of situations. So I think that's a fair point, and I don't think we need to necessarily add anything to that. If anyone wants to, feel free. But Let's go with this one. And we got a question from TJ Olson from Facebook. So, again, thank you, TJ, for the question. And how many more pop-ups on the first pitch until they move Rosario out of the cleanup? You know what? That's a fair question because they had a key point in game 2. And when he came to bat, I think runners were on first and second. My immediate thought was he's going to pop up the first pitch, and that's exactly what he did. Some of those pop-ups are to fairly deep left field, but again, every once in a while, seeing a pitch wouldn't be a bad thing. Matthew, let's let you. I know we talked a lot about Rosario, and I mean, beating a dead horse makes no sense. But, any thoughts?
Not really. I guess my only thought, the only really path that I could see to moving Rosario down in the lineup, I think with the way that Rocco constructs his lineup, and he wants to have lefties, spread out throughout the lineup. So the only path I could see would be to have a Rise bat leadoff, and then you have your Donaldson and your Cruz in the middle of the lineup. Then you have Kepler bat cleanup, and then you have Sano, and then you lead into the bottom of the order with a mixture of, Jeffers or Rooker or Marwin or Buxton or whoever else towards the end of the lineup. So really the only path I can see to getting Rosario out of the cleanup spot with just general lineup construction would be to bat a Rise leadoff, especially against righties, and then bat Kepler cleanup, especially against righties. And I really don't think that would be a bad idea. So I'd be interested in seeing that.
Yeah, we haven't heard a lot about Kepler and his recovery. I think most people were saying it shouldn't be too long. David, any further thoughts on the much maligned Eddie Rosario?
Yeah, well, I hate to join the Eddie Rosario downer party, but as I really enjoy watching Rosie play. But the plate discipline isn't there. Like you mentioned, Seth, a lot of pop-ups. Matthew, I like what you mentioned about potentially putting Kepler in that cleanup spot, and maybe starting leading off with the Rise. But it's when you think of Eddie Rosario, the type of hitter that he is, some might argue that he fits the mold of a cleanup hitter. He hits the ball hard, but at the same time, if you're gonna swing first, nothing wrong with an aggressive approach at the plate. But if you keep popping balls up, pitchers are just gonna throw up high, knowing that's what's gonna happen. So I don't know. I'm conflicted. I like seeing him in the cleanup spot because when he's hot, he's hot. But that's becoming less and less of an occurrence.
All right, let's continue this conversation. I think we probably haven't spent enough time just congratulating Brent Rooker on his game 2 home run and his second at bat. And we learned that in his first start, or one of those first games last Friday of that doubleheader, that he grew up near and was a big Cardinals fan. I think, in fact, we saw pictures of his dad and him in Busch Stadium with him wearing Cardinals gear. What a great moment for him. 2 parts. 1, the moment. 2, the home run. I think 107 miles an hour, 108 miles an hour again. And just 3, your thoughts on the type of at-bats that Rooker has taken. David, we'll go with you first this time.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I got to say, who gave Dick Bramer the crystal ball? Because he called that one. But, more importantly, really cool for Rooker. Went to – I believe he was born in Tennessee, so not too far from Missouri. And that story makes it even, that much more cooler. Maybe our version of the Garrett Cole growing up a Yankees fan. But I think, Rooker's a big, strong guy. He can hit the ball really hard like we've seen, and good discipline at the plate. He's someone that down the road, I think, we talk about next year if, Rosario is or isn't going to be here. I think that him and Jake Cave would make a great platoon for that third outfield spot. Especially with the offense that Rooker's proven that he can deal out. Now in the field, obviously, there's some work to do. And speaking of outfield, I don't know if you guys mentioned it earlier, but how about that catch in Game 1 by Jake Cave? But I think that he's proven that he can hang with the big dogs, and tonight was just another example of that.
Matthew, your thoughts on the type of at-bats that you've seen from Rooker so far?
Yeah, I guess I don't watch as much minor league as Seth and some of the other guys, so I follow the prospects but don't watch as much minor league. And kind of the rap I've gotten on Rooker was that he was a high strikeout guy who can, put some power behind the ball. And so I was expecting more, not as great of at-bats as I've seen, but he really does stay patient and wait for his pitch. And he's been getting his pitches and he's been throttling them for 105, 107, 108 mile an hour exit velocities. He's hitting the ball as hard as Miguel Sano and Nelson Cruz. There's nobody on the team hitting it harder than that. And he's just really promising prospect. And I think it's extremely exciting. I think he's completely earned a spot on this lineup throughout the rest of the season. I think when Kepler comes back, he certainly doesn't deserve to be the one demoted. I think he should stay up on this team. I think he's a great addition. He can give Rosario, he can give Kepler, he can give even at first base Miguel Sano, or at DH Nelson Cruz days off, and you hardly skip a beat on offense at the plate. And so I think he's really exciting prospect. Extremely happy for him to see him hit a home run today, and just excited to see kind of where his road takes him. I think he's shown he's a major league player, and we'll see what happens.
He's absolutely a major league hitter. I think the defensive concerns are legit. I've been very impressed with the types of at-bats, and maybe that's guys that just come up and they're still so new to it. They don't want to strike out. They want to make a great impression. He's hit a few balls to right field. He's really stayed back on some good changeups. He struck out on a changeup that was absolutely a great pitch tonight, but I really just feel like you said, everything he hits hard. Now, I think that is a fair question when someone comes back, whether it's Kepler or whoever. They get a tough decision, and I think as much as I'm a Lamont Wade guy and love the plate approaches, the plate approach, the discipline, his ability to hit the ball really hard as well, I think the platoon option, or in that case, the bench option of Jake Cave with Brent Rooker, a lefty and a righty, even though Rooker is mashed righties more than lefties, at least at AAA last year. That's a nice combination. And even if they're on the bench, if you got Rooker as a 9th inning, 8th inning pinch hit option, it's not a guy you can just go after with just fastballs and it's an easy out. So, I think he's definitely proven that he can be a big leaguer. How about, what do we have here? From Keith, I think this question came from Facebook. Heath asked, how about making Cave the regular left field? At least he won't be ripped by the White Sox announcers for not hustling. And that is one thing you will never hear about Jake Cave. That guy runs every ground ball out hard. And you're right. I don't remember who mentioned it earlier. That catch he made in Game 1 was all about getting a great jump. He's not the fastest guy. He's got good speed. That was about getting a good jump and timing it, and that was a beautiful play. I would also add this. As it comes to the White Sox, he absolutely crushes the White Sox this year. He's got the grand slam, a 2 RBI single. He had big hits last week. If they're going to play them, they're going to try to get ahead of them. I'm good with that. And then the other thing from Mike Link, who I don't think is the biggest Jake Cave fan, but he's on Facebook and says, if not Rosario, then it should be Kirilloff or Larnach. Two things I'd bring up with that. One, you've already got Wade, who deserves to be a big leaguer. You got Cave, who is a big leaguer. You got Rooker, who's showing that he's probably going to be a pretty good big leaguer. Those two may have the highest ceilings of the whole group. One, I'm feeling really good about the rookies that have come up so far, Jeffers and Rooker, and been showing a real readiness for the big leagues. But two, I don't know that right now is the time to bring them up. I don't think that's fair. Matthew, anything you'd add? Am I completely off base there?
No, I think it's just too late in the season right now to make that move. I think you need to give Kirilloff and Larnach, who are much younger than Brent Rooker, have much less experience than Brent Rooker. You need to give them a little bit of runway. You're not going to toss them right into the playoffs, right into the mix there. So I think waiting until next season. But the Twins, it's going to be interesting. They have some decisions to make between Eddie Rosario, between Jake Cave, between Max Kepler, Trevor Larnack, Alex Kirilloff, Brent Rooker. There's going to be some decisions that need to be made there, and it's going to be interesting. I think right now, I think we kind of have an idea of who the horses are going to be down the stretch, but going into the next season, it'll be interesting for sure.
David, I want to get your opinion on that. Secondly, we're at about 55 minutes, and I figure we've got 2 straight off days, so we probably won't have any post-game pints, although keep tabs. We might try to do something special over the next couple of days. We'll see. If you guys got maybe even 10 minutes, we'll take any more questions that come in, and people don't mind listening to some extra Twins talk, right?
I tell you what, there aren't a whole lot of other live sports going on now, and why not Twins baseball? But I agree. I just think it's too late in the season to bring up anybody else, and I really am getting behind Jake Cave. I wasn't huge on him in the first place. Really did not enjoy watching him at the plate. But he has proven that he can be a starting major league outfielder. And I think a lot of people would argue that if he weren't playing for the Minnesota Twins, there's other MLB teams that he'd be an everyday starter on. He, like we talked about earlier already, he's made some great catches the last couple games. And even, I can't remember, it was a couple series ago where he made one that would have been just the catch of the year in foul territory in right field, where he reached over into the seats, and it looked like he must have at least cracked a rib or something, because it looked painful. But at the same time, this whole Twins outfield debacle, while there's decisions to be made, I think that, it's not the worst thing in the world. This is an outfield that, remember, a couple of years ago, people were saying, or even last year were saying, when the Twins outfield is healthy, it's the best outfield in the league. Now, is that true? I don't know. We've seen Rosario's tendencies at the plate and on the base paths, but each guy that we're talking about in this conversation has some unique stuff to bring to the table. I really agree with you, Seth, that I really like Lamont Wade at the plate. I love his old school choke up, widen out approach. Reminds me of my high school baseball coach. But it's, there really are options. And whether they end up going with the platoon of Rooker and Cave down the road, whether they go with Cave, whether they keep Rosario, whether they bring up next season Kirilloff or somebody else, I think the outfield should continue to be a strength for the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, they've got some depth, and it's going to make for a really interesting offseason. I want to talk about one thing. Stephen Pincus, again, I think mentions this on YouTube, and we're just going to include it here just because we haven't said this for a long time. He notes, Yankees have now lost 5 in a row and are just hanging on to the 8th spot with Baltimore, Detroit, and even Seattle on their heels. How about that? We have that, right? Wouldn't it be great if they suddenly were the 9 seed going into an 8-team tournament?
I tell you what, as frustrating as that last loss was, it makes it a bit sweeter when you see the Yankees are in a tough spot. And I can't help but cheer for the Baltimore Orioles a little bit. Obviously, they were right there with the Detroit Tigers last year at the cellar of Major League Baseball. Now the Yankees certainly have the talent, I think, to turn on the Jets. But then again, I don't know how many games they have left, but it's not many. So it's getting down to crunch time for the Pinstripes.
David, I believe you had an update on the AL Central. We'll get to that as soon as Matthew gives his thoughts on the Yankees, and then I'm gonna throw another one out there as it relates not only the Yankees but a little bigger picture too.
Yeah, my thought on the Yankees is if I was I am a Twins fan, but as a Twins fan, I still would not want to face them in the playoffs. I think 60-game season, if they make it into the tournament as the 8th seed, they have just as good of odds of winning the World Series as any other team. They're still going to throw out Garrett Cole, Masahiro Tanaka, and James Paxton in the playoffs. If they can get Aaron Judge and or Giancarlo Stanton back, they still have Masters in the lineup. So it's just a really weird season where I just think we can't take anything too much from the 60 games. If they make it into the tournament, I think they're just as dangerous as any other team.
I'll add this: as much as this season has had its ups and downs, and just 60 games, I think that's why I've been able to personally kind of stay on a little bit of an even keel, just kind of knowing that it's weird. Weird stuff's going to happen. The Marlins, the Cardinals both had 2 weeks off, and they've come back and been above 500. And weird stuff is happening. The Yankees may or may not make the playoffs. They probably will, but the injuries have bit them as hard as any team in baseball, including the Twins, who have also lost a lot of time. So getting into the playoffs, as much as we all want to see the Twins win the division, to beat Chicago, to beat Cleveland, getting in this year is really all that matters. And obviously home field would be great. But I think what's happening with the Yankees is a good reminder for all of us that, the Twins right now, I believe, are 27-18, and I'm going to do a little bit of Minnesota math, meaning I'm going to use my calculator here. I probably should be able to do this in my head, but that is a 60% win rate, which would be a pace in a regular season of 97 wins. So they're playing all right, despite everything that's gone wrong, the injuries and all of that. So it's a weird season, and sometimes you just got to chalk it up to that. With that, let's talk AL Central real quick, and then I'm going to let both of you guys give some final thoughts on today or anything you've got coming or anything like that. But let's start with a brief AL Central update. And again, if anyone has any last-minute questions, feel free to ask those real quick before we call it a show. David, your update.
Absolutely. Well, like it's been the last couple days, the AL Central is tight. White Sox still have the lead right now. Cleveland is behind by a half game. Now the Twins are behind by a full game. And it looks like the Twins have 15 games left. Cleveland has 20. Cleveland has 19 and the White Sox have 20. Now going down the final stretch here, both Cleveland and Chicago have to play the Cubs in a couple games, which the Cubs, I believe, are 24-18. They're on top of the NL Central. Obviously, a very solid ball club. I believe the Cardinals are now second in the NL Central, scraping one game now. I think, they're one above 500 now. So it looks like the Cubs should run away with the Central. But as far as Cleveland goes down the road, they play Chicago again the week of September 21st in a 4-game series. But besides that, Cleveland's got Pittsburgh in a 3-game series to finish the season. They play Detroit after their series in Chicago, which takes place just a week after they play the Twins. So really, their series against the White Sox is really going to be their only really tough one in the AL Central, minus that NL Central matchup with the Cubs. And given the fact that those two teams have respectively 19 and 20 games left, and the Twins only have 15, unless I'm doing my math incorrectly, which I could, the Twins are really, if they want to win the AL Central, they're going to have to be dominant this last home stretch. And like you just mentioned, Seth, this year especially, winning the division isn't it's not the end all be all, but obviously it's a goal that a lot of Twins fans are shooting for, and it's one that they're still able to do. They're only a game behind, but they're going to have to start kicking it into gear. And games like tonight are probably ones that they're going to have to find ways to win. So yeah, it's exciting, and it's an exciting time to be an AL Central baseball fan. There was a good article published on Twins Daily. I can't remember who wrote it, but talking about solid pitchers in the AL Central. Seth, you wrote that? Hey, there you go.
That was me. I actually wrote something.
Hey, well, it was a stellar read. Everybody make sure to go to twinsdaily.com and give that a read. The AL Central maybe isn't a division that traditionally we've thought of been a powerhouse division, but there's some good baseball teams. I was actually listening to a pregame interview with Al Avila, the dad of Alex Avila, who I believe works in the Tigers office. And he was talking about, he's their GM. Yeah. And he was talking about how he argued that the AL Central might be the best division in baseball. So there's some good baseball being played.
Hey, I mean, I think he's right based on what we've seen. He's right. The impossible thing is that they're only playing the AL Central and the NL Central, so we have no idea how they would do against the Dodgers and Padres or the Yankees and Rays and things like that. So, real quickly, I want to do this. Mom Insane waves. So I'm going to do. Whoops, wrong arm. Hello. And I only do that because she later says good night to all of us by saying good night, guys, and thank you for not beating up on my son Randy too much tonight. So we'll follow that with Twins got this, and we agree. Thank you very much, Mrs. Dobnik, for joining tonight, and hopefully you've enjoyed this. And I don't think we were too harsh. We thought that his control struggles tonight, just like my ability to say a combination apparently of trouble and struggles, was temporary. No big deal. We got this. He's got this.
Absolutely.
Anyway, wanted to put that out there real quick. So again, thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone for listening. Matthew, your thoughts on the AL Central as we go through these last two?
Yeah, I bring this up every once in a while, and it's sort of a Debbie Downer type comment, but it's just that I can't help but think during these times just how intense and exciting this would be if there was not expanded playoffs. We have 3 teams right now within 1 game of the division lead, and if you had the 3 teams all fighting for the division title to be able to have a full divisional series, and then you had the 2 other teams in the AL Central fighting to who's going to have the wild card versus who's not, versus potentially the AL Central, having 3 playoff teams would be extremely exciting. So it's a bit of a damper that we don't have that. But anyways, it's still exciting. I think a division title is something that any team shoots for. You get a banner in your stadium, and it's exciting to win the division. So we've got what we got, and let's fight for the division title right now. And I think looking at the schedules, this next week is going to be monumental. You have the Minnesota Twins, who have 2 days off. Then they have a 3-game set against Cleveland and a 4-game set against Chicago. And then the White Sox, after a series against the Twins, they have the 4-game set against the Twins, and then they play the Reds, but then they have a 4-game set against the Indians. And then obviously the Indians face the Twins and the White Sox. So each of the 3 major players in the AL Central plays each other for either 3 or 4 games within the next week. And that is going to decide the AL Central, depending on how that goes, depending on how each of those teams perform. It's going to be massive. And we've seen the Twins and every other team in baseball that's been trying to play this long game. And now you're getting to the point that you're at the end of the regular season. You're at the point where these major players are facing each other in, the last couple weeks of the season. And this is the part of the season that you win or lose the division. And so I think we're going to see a lot different baseball in this next week than we've seen so far. I think we're going to see different managerial decisions from Rocco and other Major League Baseball team managers. I think they're going to make different decisions as well, and it's going to be a different game than we've seen. We're going to be transitioning from the long game to the short game, and that's what I'm going to be watching and seeing. I think we're going to be doing a lot of scoreboard watching. We're going to be watching how the Twins do, and we're also going to be seeing how the White Sox and Indians do, and it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun, and hopefully I think a lot of fans will jump right back in here shortly. I've had a lot of people say things like, the Twins probably aren't going to win the division, and I'm like, there's 3 teams within 1 game of each other, literally 1 game. That is a 2-game winning streak potentially from going from 3rd to 1st place. So, and when they're playing each other, it should be really interesting. Obviously, the Twins are going to face Shane Bieber on Friday, I think. But they're going to probably get Giolito again. They're probably going to see a lot of good pitchers, and teams are lining up for these series. They're all big. They're all huge. So, Buxton and Polanco didn't play game 2 today. They'd let Cruz to get a couple of days off. They've been cautious with Arise. They've been cautious with Donaldson and his return. My assumption is as long as they're healthy, those guys are all going to be in the lineup for every Cleveland game, for every Chicago game. And you're going to hopefully get Kepler back and work with him. And at the same time, easing them in, because you still have to remember, as we've talked about, they're going to make the playoffs. We're not worried about that. Now it's just a matter of seeding and things like that. So it's going to be a very interesting week. I want to post one more here. Jeff, good listening to you, Seth. And again, now we're getting my relatives calling in and saying good job. So I'm sure they're lying. But Jeff, doesn't it seem like forever ago that we were both down in Fort Myers watching the Twins game together? And that seems like forever ago. But good times. Thanks for listening. Mike Link posted on Facebook, the race is still good, but the fact that ESPN and other sites are intent on 500 teams, Detroit, Baltimore, Marlins, is sad. But that's the way it is this year when 8 teams are making the playoffs. That's how it's going to play out. All right, we're going to go over at an hour and 10 minutes. Again, Bonus would be mad if he were in here if we're going this long, but we appreciate all the questions you've had. Any last questions, get them in right now. We'll ask them. But we're going to go, each one of us, one more thought on either today or what you're looking forward to. And let's start with Matthew on this one.
Yeah, I'll just continue on what I've been saying. I'm just interested to see how the game plan changes from how these first 45 games or however have been played to how they're going to be played down the stretch. I'm interested from just a general sense of how hard the Twins are going to go after a division title. We don't know Rocco well enough to know how much he cares about a division title versus how much he cares about getting the team healthy. But also just we're starting to see who he wants to have down the stretch, and he's trying to figure out who he can trust in an October series. So I'm just extremely excited to see how the game plans change down the stretch, who figures their way out in the bullpen pecking order. We're still not sure who the 3 playoff starters are going to be. So there's a lot. There's only 15 games left or so, but there's a lot of things to be figured out. We're going to figure out if the Twins are going to win the division or not. We're going to figure out who are the 5 or 6 relief pitchers that we can trust in October. And we're going to find out who are the 3 starting pitchers who we're going to trot out there in the ALDS, the best of 3 series. So there's a lot to watch for. You watch for wins and losses, but there's a lot of game within the game that we're going to be looking forward to watching.
For sure. It's going to be intense, as you mentioned already. The fact that 3 teams will make the playoffs takes some of that intensity away. But, I mean, ultimately, these players and these teams want to win games. So, it should get real intense. David, your final thoughts here tonight.
Yeah, well, I think my biggest takeaway of the night is, the second game of the Twin Bill didn't go the way that we wanted it to. I feel a lot more confident about our starting pitching right now than maybe I did a week ago. Now, the reason that I say that is because Michael Pineda had one heck of a start the other day, and it was just great to see Barrios pitch a really good 5 innings in Game 1 today. That's the most in command that we've seen him, in my opinion, all season. Yes, now he gave up the 2-run shot in the 6th inning, but that is one pitch, and that 3rd run was due to the pass ball that went by La Tortuga. And the other reason that I feel confident about our pitching right now is because, sure, Randy Dobnik did not have his A game tonight, but he's been rock solid for a majority of the season. He's 6-3 on the year. You take a look at those numbers blindly, that's a good season. Yes, now he's fluctuated a little bit, but he's a guy that's faced a lot of adversity. He's a gritty player, and I'm fully confident that even if he's not a playoff starter, he's someone that's going to contribute in a positive way to this pitching staff because of the mentally tough type of baseball that he plays. So while they didn't get the sweep tonight, I feel decent about starting pitching going forth here as we get down into the nitty-gritty of the season.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, David. I guess my final point is I don't know what more to add. I'm excited about the roster. I'm excited about guys getting back, getting healthy, and really excited about what the next 10 days will be. Those are going to be some big games against Cleveland, Chicago, the White Sox, and the Cubs. And it'll be fun to be scoreboard watching. It feels like, and I know a lot of Twins fans have talked about it too, that it feels a little lethargic, that things are hard to watch. Tonight's game 2, was hard to watch because it was certainly not a crisp game. You want to see strikes. You want to see plays made. You just want to see good baseball. But at this point of the year, it's about, getting those W's. There are 3 teams within 1 game of each other in the division. It's going to be exciting down the stretch. So with that, I want to just kind of, bring in Twins Daily. Again, thank you all for participating. But little inside on the site, we've got an article coming here tonight yet in the next, about 12 minutes from Matthew Trueblood. We've got the game recap that David Youngs wrote here before joining us tonight. As we scroll through here, we've got some articles we've talked about. We have the notebook before the doubleheader, but we talked a little bit about Eddie Rosario. I think that's been a huge topic for a lot of Twins fans, not just in the last week, but obviously Nick's article from last night brought a lot of attention, got a ton of page views. David mentioned my article from earlier today of Pitching Rich American League Central. There's some really good pitching in the American League Central. We see it in the big leagues now with guys like Barrios, Maeda, Bieber, Savali, Giolito. And we're now seeing kind of that phase with Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal, and we're going to see more like Asa Lacy and others who are Matt Manning, Dane Dunning. These teams have a lot of prospects, and the Twins do too with Joan Duran, Jordan Balazovic, Dakota Chalmers, and more. So it's going to get tougher in the AL Central. So again, check out twinsdaily.com. Got a ton of articles, including the 3 players going into free agency at the wrong time, and we've got Trevor May highlighted there, which again we talked about. We covered a ton of topics, you guys, tonight. I appreciate you all joining us. We're at 1 hour and 16 minutes, so thank you, especially to Matthew for being on the whole time, and David for not only writing tonight about 2 games, but joining us as well. I want to thank everyone for listening, everyone who participated, sent in a comment. A lot of fun tonight. If you get a chance, tell your friends, tell your family. As you saw here, again, thank you to those that are listening on Facebook Live, on Twitter Live with Periscope, on YouTube Live. But also be sure to check out and download and subscribe to the Twins Daily podcast. It's available on all kinds of places where you find your podcast. So with that, want to thank again Matthew Taylor, David Youngs. My name is Seth Stos of Twins Daily. Stop by the site anytime. And thank you all for listening, and I hope you have yourselves a great night. We'll talk later.